Greetings, YouTube, and welcome to episode 24 of the Encyclopedia Magica Volume 1. I almost said 124 because I thought I was doing, for a second, my 4,000 questions videos, which are thankfully done. Yes, all 400 of them, all gone. Alrighty, so now we're going to go into, I think we're over here. We're still in the arrows. Yes, we're still under A for arrow. Okay, we have the Arrow of Slaying, and that's as in Santa's. No XP value, and it's worth 50. Dragon Magazine, when this powerful item is drawn in a bow in a combat situation, it immediately expands and folds into a full-sized 4-place toboggan. That could be humorous. We have the Arrow of the Snake. Well, that's right out of Conan, now, isn't it? This is 50 XP, 100 GP. That's a low ratio. Polyhedron. When loosed, these Arrow +1 transform themselves into pit vipers. Yep, same as I thought it was. The poison is weak, so all saving throws are made at +1. They remain in snake form until killed, which also destroys the arrow. Okay, next we have the Arrow of Speaking, 50 XP, 150 GP. Again, strangely low ratio. This is from the Rules Encyclopedia. A missile with this talent misses any creature at which it is fired. It is used for communication purposes only. The user may give the missile any message up to 20 words or less and then shoot it, either naming a place within 10 miles or aiming at a target. The missile automatically lands at the floor or ground at the target area, repeats its messages aloud twice, and then falls silent. It could be interesting. Not only could it be interesting for the purposes of conveying information to someone that you need to, but also it's a great way of getting disinformation spread to an enemy. To have them sending troops in the wrong place or heading down, chasing a red herring for a smaller, tighter mission, it's just the adventuring group as opposed to like a military action. Next we have the Arrow of Stun Bolt, 200 XP, GP 700. This is from the Dwarves Deep. This special crossbow quarrel can be fired from any size crossbow, from hands to heavy, and looks like a stone door knob on a short, thin shaft. When fired, a stun bolt behaves in all cases as if fired from a hand crossbow. However, on impact, it shatters into dust-sized motes, releasing a stunning magical shock of force that does 2d4 damage to any one being struck. This is, I guess, apparently it interferes with your capacity to think or act. When living things are affected, undead and only living things, objects suffer no shock effect. So, such weapons can often be used by dwarven guards. Now, you could also just have blunt-tipped stun bolts. I mean, there were in the real world stun bolts designed with blunt heads for the purposes of stunning an animal that you didn't want to pierce. That's also the reason they had stone bows, which were bows that fired essentially sling bullets, a little smaller diameters and lighter, but they were designed to kill animals without harming the pelt. So if you wanted to go after small game or birds, that's the kind of thing that would be used for. Then we have the Arrow of Stunning, which is slightly different than the stun bolts, and this is a 250 XP, 750 GP, also from the Rules Encyclopedia. A victim hit by a missile with this talent must make a saving throw versus spell or be stunned for 1d6 rounds. We have the Sturge's Bite. The Sturge, everyone's favorite low-level monster. This is 130 XP, 780 GP. It's a strange multiplier there, but all right. I mean, it works, but it's still 780 just seems like a strange number. You know what I mean? Dragon Magazine 135. This arrow +5. Wow, that's powerful. It's a steel shaft and is rather large in size. When the arrow hits, it drains 1 ounce of the target's blood, which is then stored in a hollow compartment in the shaft. Following around, the arrow detaches itself from its victim and may be recovered later by the archer. Due to the importance of blood and an ingredient in the fabrication of scroll inks and potions, this arrow is highly prized by wizards, priests, and alchemists. Not to mention, for tracking purposes, because if you now have somebody's blood, you can do all kinds of nefarious things with it now, can't you, if you have access to magic? That is powerful. I like it. We have the Arrow of Teleporting, 400 XP, 800 GP. Again, that's a low ratio. Rules Encyclopedia. A victim hit by the missile with this talent must make a saving throw versus spell, a +2 bonus to the roll, or be teleported to a point 1d100 miles away with directions and distance determined randomly. The victim cannot arrive in the air or within a solid object. So that would be a very solid way of taking an enemy out of an environment that you can't defeat. You can't defeat the enemy, so you need to get them to go that way, essentially. It also, under certain circumstances, would be useful for taking a hostage away from an enemy, such like speed. Go for the good wound, you shoot the hostage. Well, a single arrow is not likely to kill someone, and suddenly they're no longer being held hostage. Brutal, yes, but also brutally efficient. The Arrow of Transporting, which is apparently different than teleporting, 400 GP, 400 XP, 800 GP, and again, low ratio. Rules Encyclopedia, a victim hit by this missile must make a saving throw versus spell, be sent to a point up to 360 feet away as determined by the missile user. This is identical to the wizard spell Dimensional Door and cannot cause the victim to appear within a solid object. Not as powerful as the teleporting one, but a similar effect. In fact, I would make that considerably less expensive. It's emulating a Dimension Door spell, which is way, way less powerful than a teleport. So it should not be the same XP or GP cost as a teleport spell. Not to mention, you should never have to pay XP to make magic items. Making things gains you experience, not costs you experience. I've been crafting for a long time. I'm better now than I was when I started. We have Arrow Wooden, just wooden. 1,000 XP, 5,000 GP. The Complete Book of Elves. This is a completely organic arrow, made entirely from wood and carved with ornate runes. It appears to be nothing more than a novelty or perhaps a woodcarver's doodle. In reality, this arrow is a very dangerous weapon and it can radiate strong enchantment magic. The arrow ignores all non-magical armor, thus metal armor offers no protection against the missile, which, while a leather, hide, and scale mail from a creature, skin offer normal bonuses. So vegetarian armor is still going to help you. Studded leather protects only as leather armor. Side note, sorry about this, the dryer in the background. Side note, just do away with studded leather. It never existed. Just throw it out the window. In the studded leather category, just call it leather, kerboli, boiled leather. And in the traditional leather category for armor, just use padded. That's a far better reflection of reality. Studded leather does not exist and never has. Those wearing metal armor are considered to be AC 10 against this arrow. Now remember, AC 10 was the worst at ace armor class you could have back in AD&D, as opposed to AC 10 being the average armor class under 3.5 or P1. And I think P2 is the same too. I think it's under 5th edition as well. Couldn't tell you how AC worked under 4th edition, and I don't care. Magical protection still applies, thus a plate mail +4, although normally AC -1 would instead be AC 6 against the wooden arrow. Remember, AC lower, the lower the AC was, the better it was. These arrows are never found in bunches. If encountered, there is but a single shaft. Furthermore, the wooden arrow is an exception to elven arrows in that it always destroyed one fire regardless of whether or not it hits anything. That seems strange. The wood, especially for 1,000 XP, The wood necessarily to the enchantment is not such that any function, it will only function in no other way. Okay, now let's think about this for a second. You have to spend 1,000 XP to make this thing. Again, I think that's counterintuitive, but it costs you 5,000 gold pieces, or whatever your monetary unit is. I prefer silver-based systems myself. But so you're 5,000 monetary units in a hole for an arrow, a purely organic arrow, so it's a vegetarian arrow, and all it really does is ignore metal armor. Now that's really darn cool. Is it cool enough to be worth $5,000? I mean, what could you get for 5,000 monetary units that would be much, much better than this thing? Do you know what I mean? I think there's a lot of magical arrow options out there that would be, and you could buy bunches of them, maybe a score of them, that would be more efficient than this thing. And realistically, there's no reason you can't have 100% wooden arrow in the real world. Just nothing at all. You can make a purely vegetarian arrow with a wooden shaft, with either wooden vanes or feathered fletchings, using nothing that isn't completely organic, glues and windings, twines and things like that, wax twine for binding everything together. You could have an arrow tip which is made out of bone or wood. And remember, in a world with ironwood spell, that could be just as hard as steel. And that particular weapon is going to be very good against like undead. Like vampires are not going to like that arrow. But this is overpriced and makes absolutely no sense to me. I cannot understand why anybody thought it was a good idea. Wow. We have the Hour of Wounding, which seems a little bit repetitious if you ask me. 500 XP, 2500 GP, rule Encyclopedia. When a missile with the wounding talent strikes a target creature, it inflicts normal damage. In addition, however, it causes the loss of 1 hit point per round thereafter until a magical cure is applied. A potion, cure, disease, yada yada. However, no undead creature or construct can be wounded with this talent, and such creatures suffer only the initial damage. It's just a bleeding arrow. It's not worth 2,500 monetary units. It isn't. It's just an arrow with the bleeding characteristic. Heck, I think there are some mundane weapons in the game that produce a bleeding, but it's not as long-term as this. But still, yeah, not wow, that's really horrible price. Now we have the Arrowhead of Marking. This is the first thing that isn't an arrow. This is the Arrowhead of Marking. And this is 25 XP, 50 GP, again a low ratio. The Ruins of Undermountain. These normal-looking stone arrowheads must be shaped by the being enchanting them. Okay, that was just a little strange. The common use of these devices is as dungeon and maze markers. If one is placed on a stone surface and a command word set during the enchantment of the item is spoken, the arrowhead sinks into the surface of the stone. There it fuses, leaving a clearly visible arrowhead mark pointing in the direction it was set. These items may be used to point in directions, or multiples can be placed to form code symbols or messages in stone walls, floors, yada yada. Arcane Mark, which is a cantrip, which costs you nothing to cast. It does the same thing and lasts a month. Why would I mean, I can understand if you were using a system where making things earns you experience points, or experience as it should, that you banging these out simply because it is experience and you get better at things. But why would you spend 25 experience points to make this thing when you could use that cantrip or something as advanced as chalk? Okay, what time are we at? We're at 14:31. All right, so we're going to call it good here, because next we get into art, which is a category unto itself. How long does it go? Art is pretty good size. It's got like 3 or 4 pages in there, so we're gonna we're going to be learning about art next. Bet you didn't think that you'd be watching an RPG video and you'd get a little education in art. All right, so thank you for being here for the 24th episode of the Encyclopedia Magica Volume 1. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope that you will return for the next one. And we are finally done with arrows.